If there's a modern guitarist that truly needs no introduction, that has to be Bill Frisell. His career over the last 35 years that I know him alone has just skyrocketed, and he's known in every area of music, not just modern guitar. His playing with people like Lucinda Williams and Elvis Costello and others have introduced him to the pop world, but he is truly a modern guitarist. The first time I saw him was playing with Percy Jones from Brand X. Percy Jones had a band called Stone Tiger, and he was playing at the Bitter End in New York City. And I knew who Percy Jones was. I didn't know who was playing with him. I went down to see him, and there was Bill playing some synth guitar and playing regular guitar. And I sat there with my mouth open thinking, I've never heard anything like this before. This guy is from another planet, but I love it. And I've since followed his career over the years, listened to his records, have interviewed him a number of times, have gotten to know him as something of a friend, and it's great always to talk to him. We did a nice interview on the occasion of his new record, Valentine, and he talks about that, and we talk about a lot of other things as well. So enjoy my interview with Bill Frisell.
Man, I'm sorry I took so long. We went through this whole ordeal trying to get a car, and we got a car finally, but they kept stalling us off, and that's what derailed us when we first started trying to talk. And then, man, this last week I went into outer space because I know we were supposed to talk. Anyway, here we are.
I'm just blaming everything on COVID these days. I mean, everybody's got COVID
No,
brain.
It is weird that time is like, I don't know, it must be for you too. Like just the days are like, it's so strange, like ground or something.
The days, the weeks, the months at this point.
Yeah.
That's why when I texted you, I said, yeah, I'm free Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's just, I mean, I'm sure it sounds like you've been busy and I've been busy. I know a lot of people, a lot of musicians and people in the music industry have been somehow really busy during this period. Has that been true for you?
Well, yeah, then now at the beginning, there was this sort of shock of it. And then I would the good part was like, wow, I would just go to my guitar and just play all day. Like there was nothing in the way. And that sort of kept my head together. And then gradually now I'm actually getting weirdly busy with some, not really gigs, but I'm going to play. More of these sort of streaming things are happening and different. Somehow I've gotten more busy.
Are you writing?
Well, yeah, that's what's insane. I've just got piles and piles of, I don't know if they're complete tunes or what, it's sketches or little ideas, there's just notebook after notebook filled with this stuff,
Well, that's the way you usually write, isn't it?
Yeah. What's weird this time is there's a much shorter, I'll write some stuff and then I'll be able to check it out play it with people. I mean, for me, that's so much of what it is. I'll write something, and I still write on paper, and it's like I'll write a melody or whatever, and then I get together with people, and then it goes from there. But during this time, it's like this accumulation of just, it's absurd the amount of stuff that I've written that I haven't taken into that next zone. So I'm just dying for that to get when we can get back to being together again.
Sure. Would you weed stuff out like that? In other words, you write a bunch of stuff and you'll bring it in, and if it and see if it works with other people, and then
Yeah,
discard
I mean,
stuff.
it sort of goes through all these layers. Like I try to, I mean, I think we've talked about that. Like when I write, it took me so long to, at the beginning, it was like my own uh, self or being critical of it, would stop I'd start writing something and then, it's no good. And, I'd keep blocking myself with my own doubt or what. So gradually I've learned to just write, just keep going and just keep writing stuff. So that's the first thing, just get some stuff. And then I'll go back and play it or think about it, look at it. And then after it's there, I can judge it, and then some things maybe emerge from that. And then I write them down again, try to make it more make it look more formal or something. And then it gets to play it with someone else. And then that's where hearing what someone else's, the way they interpret it, then it turns into a whole nother, either it goes somewhere or it doesn't, it comes to life, or then I think, or maybe it's not the right person to play it with or something. But it goes through all these stages, and now it's sort of stuck at that early. I could show you all these. I mean, it's just, there's like notebooks filled with this stuff, and
Well,
it's a little.
you did that performance on your doorstep a little while back in Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't it was in the neighborhood. Yeah, a friend of mine.
Can you guys get together like that outdoors and
A-
play some?
Actually, just yesterday, I played with Tony Shear and Kenny Wallison at Tony's. He That was so great. He went all up and down his block and asked his neighbors if it was cool, and there was some kind of Con Edison had been working on the block, so they had these um, barricade things that were already sort of sitting around on the street. So Tony put the barricades out in front of his place, and we just set up and started playing in front of his building. And no, it wasn't announced or anything, just people in the neighborhood just sort of stopped by. That was great, just to be with, you know playing music for people.
Oh,
It's
I know. Well, and playing with other people. I mean, I that's one of the things I really miss,
Yeah,
in this
really
period. I mean,
hard.
I'd actually been playing out a lot just before this happened for, the first time in the 5 year, I mean, 8 years this month that I've lived here. I started playing about two
Wow,
years
you've
ago
been
with
there.
some people. Yeah.
Believe you've been there that long already.
Yeah. Neither can I. Well, I want to ask you, it was interesting. David Hadju's liner notes, is that how you pronounce it? Hadju? Um,
You, yeah, I'm not sure if I can say Haju or
who knows? But they speak of the place of the trio in jazz, and I was wondering what your feelings are about that configuration, because you've played in a lot of different configurations, but you've always had trios here and there.
Yeah, I mean that's, well, I said that in the in the notes. I said something about the structure of it is so strong, like a tripod or something, where it doesn't, you can sort of set it up in any way and there's a strength to it. But I don't know if that's, how much is that. And for me, it's really more about, I said that too, it's really more about the people, the strength of the personalities together, and how it's not so much about the, I mean, of course, this is a more normal, bass, drums, and guitar. But it's not so much about the instruments as it is about the personalities and just how you're hooking up as humans together.
Sure. Well, speaking of that, I mean, I was curious how your latest trio with Rudy and Thomas feels different than Kermit Driscoll and Hank Roberts, or Tony Sher and Kenny Wallace, and just to name like.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's all. They're all. It's all about the people. All those combinations of people that I've played with, they are different, and all those people bring something different. It's hard to pick apart. I've said that too. Like, it's when there's something in music, when it's really happening, I'm sort of afraid to, like, I don't really like to analyze it too much, or like, it seems like as soon as you try to figure out why it was so good, or if you think about it too much, it's like you break the spell or something. It's like, I mean, you've probably had that experience. Like, I've had so many times, like when you're playing and the stuff is really lifting off, and you're in it, you're in the music and you're playing. And then the moment like that you realize, like I'm playing, I say, oh man, I've just played the most badass thing I ever played. As soon as I realize that, I'll just fall on my face. Or like one time I was playing, my daughter, this was the most incredible day. My daughter was working at this artist retreat place up in Vermont, and I went there to visit her. And one night they had a ping pong table there, and it's like, I don't know, 9 o'clock at night, and there's no one around, and we said, oh, let's play some ping pong. And we start playing, and oh, let's not keep score, let's just count how many times we can hit it back and forth. So we start, 1, 2, 3, 4, we get up to like 20 or something, and then we miss. And I said, man, let's see if we can make it up to 100 without messing up. And we keep trying and trying. Like an hour goes by, we get 65. So, oh shit, we keep trying, and then finally we got into this zone, and it was like 51, 52, 53, 54. We got past 100, like 100, and we're just like, it was just going, and it was incredible. Like, so we got up to 608. That's the number. 600. But right at that moment was in my mind, I said, fuck, man. I bet we can make it to 1,000. I didn't even say it out loud. I said, we're going to make it to 1,000, And as soon as that thought went in my mind, the ball goes off the table.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But that's like when you're playing, you got to just stay in. Oh man, what's that? I see behind you. Check this out.
Oh, the Jazz Master?
Do we have matching guitars?
No, not quite. Your guitar probably cost about twice.
No.
That's a J Mascis Squire Jazz Master.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
No, this is actually.
I mean, let me put it this way: that Mastery bridge you have on there cost more than this guitar. But
oh, man.
that said, this, I mean, well, not exactly, because I put Kinman, these are Kinman noiseless pickups in it.
Uh-huh.
So,
Oh man,
but that's
cool.
the only mod on it, and I love it. I,
Yeah.
I was
No,
playing with.
those some of the choir things are amazing. But this isn't actually, a lot of this is like the neck is not a real Fender neck, and well, anyway, I thought we had matching guitars.
They're close. But um, but yeah, I know what you mean. Obviously, I think many people have said that thought is the enemy of that kind of being in the moment, and really it is all about not thinking about it. But there's just certain things about excuse me. You've played in so many configurations, like with Thomas. He's such a brilliant player, Thomas Morgan, the bass player, and your style of playing already contains a lot of space. But I was wondering, playing with him, do you find yourself leaving even a little extra space because he's going to fill it with such amazing stuff?
Well, yeah, but it's like also, it's like having a conversation. So you just get into that. Um, well, there's the back and forth of a conversation, but then there's also the idea of counterpoint and harmony, that you can be doing things at the same time too. And someone like well, both Thomas and Rudy, there's this incredible kind of there's a conversational thing, but there's also this sort of orchestrational, compositional sense that maybe we have together or something. They'll both find things that'll offset what I'm playing. It's all happening at the same time. We're doing it to each other, so it's you try to find sorry, it's like so many things racing through my mind. When you're playing, it's sometimes you're with each other and sometimes you're against each other, and
Well, yeah, that happens in improvisation. That's the nature of, I guess, jazz and improvisation, and where you're feeding off each other. But you seem to have a special relationship with him, like in the duos as well. I was curious if
yeah.
your interaction with him in the duo. Obviously, there's more space for both of you, and so does he play a slightly different role in the trio? Or does that
I,
interaction work differently, or is it pretty much the same thing, just with another voice?
yeah, I don't. It's not really. I don't think about it so much. It's just a natural. It just comes naturally.
All right, well, moving on. Like our favorite Jim Hall and many other jazz players, you revisit a lot of tunes, that you've recorded before, which is a pretty standard thing in jazz, no pun intended. I was wondering, is there something about a tune that makes you keep coming back to it? And does playing with putting it in different contexts help you find new things in it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, one thing as I'm getting older, it's wild. When I think, no, but what starts happening is, when you think of all the years, like the first time that I ever played the Days of Wine and Roses or whatever, 50 years ago or something. So over all that time, you just, every day if I play that song right now, I know I'm going to find something else in it that I didn't know was, that's in the nature of music. It's just infinite. You could play the same song for your whole life, one song, and you'll never uncover all the nooks and crannies there. Even the most whatever, Mary Had a Little Lamb, there's a lot of stuff in there. So what I'm saying, I've this or what's been kind of cool as I get older, like I started noticing, wow, I'll go back to some of my own tunes that I haven't played in many, many years, and I'll suddenly like, whoa, wait, I didn't realize, I'll see things in my own music that I never knew was there. So it's been cool to, it doesn't feel like just going over the same thing again. It feels like I don't want it to be that. I don't want it to be worked out. So I know it's going to be such and such a way. I want it to always be uncertain somehow, and definitely playing them with different people. Then you get a whole nother. It's like you're getting whatever you're finding yourself on your own in the song, but then you're getting all these other perspectives thrown at you. So,
Well,
but that's been kind of.
and as you get older, I mean, as we go along, you also change as a player. I mean, you've evolved in your playing, and so you're probably bringing new things as a player to it that you didn't have in your repertoire.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I hope. I'm hoping.
We all hope. So that song, the title song, Valentine, has a real monkish feel to it.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
pretty much. It's like I said, it's almost plagiarism maybe, but it's really just this little 3-note phrase that he could have easily played.
Well, yeah, but you of all, maybe not just guitarists, but of all musicians I know, play monk tunes and play with that kind of style, and somehow are true to the spirit of his tunes. And I was wondering what your relationship is to his music, and did his style influence the way you play, or was it
Oh
more
yeah.
a confirmation of your own tendencies?
No, I mean, I can't literally, I was just, this sounds maybe weird, but I really do. I think about him every day. I think about Monk every single day, and I can't think of, maybe he's the most influential musician. I don't know. I'm not sure. I wouldn't want to just narrow it down to one person, but he's just at the very top of people that inspire me all the time. As a also as a learning about him as a person. I never met him or anything, but all the stories about him, and thinking all the obstacles that were put in front of him and how he stayed, just that's so inspiring, to what he did despite all the stuff that was coming down on him, and how he basically just invented this whole way of thinking about music. And so when I look at his tunes, it's just like I can't even, I'm like speechless. You could take just the smallest fraction, take one measure or a couple notes, and if you start looking in there, it's like, whoa, wait a second. It kind of, just think about that, and it can apply to so much other music. I mean, what I'm saying, I think, is true for music in general. If you slow down and just just wait a second, look at this one little piece and think about it, it's going to show you something. It'll ask you questions, but with him, it seems especially true. Those songs are just filled with all kinds of openings into other worlds. And then what also keeps up, like a song that I think I knew, like some of those songs I've played for so long, and then I'll one day I'll come and wait a second, I realize I'd been playing one note wrong or something, and there's one little thing that I was missing or one little added note somewhere, and then that becomes this, oh wait, if I had known that, I would have done this and that. Well, like, the record with with Thomas, Epistrophe, the album is named after a monk tune, and we play that song Epistrophe, and it's on there's a note that I play on there in the melody that's actually, I'm not sure if I would say it's wrong, but he ended up using, I think there's some earlier versions where it's the way I played it, but later on this note became a half step higher than what I was playing. And I noticed that after we had made the record, and I'm like, oh man, that's happened so many times.
You mean Monk played it differently early in his career, or you played it differently?
Well, like some of the song Epistrophe, there's some of the very early, I think I play it like the way Milt Jackson played it maybe. But then it's like the second 4 bars is not, I thought it was just an exact transposition of the first 4 bars, but it's not. There's the first note of that is a half step higher than that. So anyway, just there's little things like that, that just it just keeps more and more is revealed in his music, and so I'm just so inspired. And the very first jazz concert I went to when I was in high school, I've told this story so many times, but I had discovered Wes Montgomery, and that was like, oh my God, this whole world of music just opened up to me. And he was coming to, I grew up in Denver, and so there was this it was the Newport Jazz Festival. I forget if it was Cool Cigarettes or some Cool Salute to Jazz. Anyway, it was Newport traveling they were traveling around the country doing these jazz concerts, and he was to come as part of this thing with Cannonball Adderley and Gary Burton and Monk and Dionne Warwick. But he passed away. Wes Montgomery passed away, but I already had the ticket, and I thought, well, I'll go anyway, and so I heard. What was weird, I still wonder about, I wish I could go back. So it was the summer of 1968, and 1968, there's a year for you. But anyway,
I almost remember it.
Yeah, a lot happened in that. But anyway, he played, and I didn't know what was going on. It was like, but what I remember, it was so new to me, but I thought, wow, that sounds cool, but I remember the audience booing, and I can't figure out why. I still don't know why, because he played too short, or he didn't get up and dance, or he didn't, why were they booing? Because it sounded like music to me, or else maybe they were just wanted, Dionne Warwick was sort of the big headliner. She was super, like a superstar at that time, and maybe they just wanted to get on with hearing Dionne Warwick, who I love too, but anyway, I actually got to see him once, and then I saw recently I got to get this, they found these recordings of him. I guess it's called Palo Alto or something. It's a concert in California that was maybe within a month of the time that I saw him. So it has to be probably some of the same, it's the same band and the same music, same, probably playing the same tunes and stuff. So I want to get that album just to see, maybe bring me back to that moment when I first heard it.
Yeah, I think it was available in England, and it was pulled off the market at one point, and then returned, and I think it may now be available in the United States. But yeah, people were like moving heaven and earth to get a hold of it. Uh, he's one of those guys to me, like Wayne Shorter, where they invented their own musical language, and it's an odd musical language that doesn't sound like other people's musical language, but the internal logic of it is so strong that
Yeah,
you go with it because it makes sense. Somehow they make it make sense. I mean, I could say the same
yeah,
thing about a lot of your music also, which you know doesn't always move in the same way as as what we've come, most people do 2-5-1 things, or the way most people compose. I mean, it has this pointillist, or slightly abstract approach to it,
yeah.
which that's one of the things that reminds me of Monk, obviously. And
I mean, I've definitely, I've stolen so much from him. I mean, the other thing about him too is it's so, you say he invented his own music basically, but it's so connected to the whole history. It's like it goes
oh
all
yeah,
the way back into the ground, and then at the same time, it goes off into the total outer space, into the future. And so it's like this super advanced thing, but then at the same, like I remember my daughter when she was like 2 or 3, like dancing, or like little kids can understand what he's doing, or they know it's him. So it's like it just cuts across all these. You can hear it on so many levels. It's totally accessible and beautiful for everyone, but then at the same time, it's, if you want to get into some intellectual scientific study, you could spend the rest of your life with that too.
yeah. And it was a long time before I realized it didn't actually come out of nowhere. There's a Duke Ellington, I think it's a solo piano record, where there's a Duke Ellington piano record. It's not his full band, and on that
Oh,
record and on Money Jungle, you can hear that
oh yeah.
Ellington wasn't that far removed as a player from
Oh,
Monk.
totally, yeah. And all the stride guys, like, yeah, he goes way back.
Yeah, there was. I mean, I was amazed how abstract and angular Ellington could get on those records. Um, I was going to ask you on where is it? On Hourglass, is that Morgan Boeing? Is he
Oh
bowing
yeah,
something along with
that,
you?
that that's one of the. I mean, most of the record is just true live, 3 guys in the studio, but that one definitely has. Thomas added a arco bass to the melody, and I'm playing it with him with a fuzz guitar. So there's sort of that. So that was one tune where we added those parts on with overdubs, and there's a couple other ones like,
Aunt Mary sounds like it might have overdubs.
oh yeah, that one also. That's the most obviously. Wait a minute, there's there's not 3
He's
no, I mean
not that
it's not,
good.
I mean I just added um, an extra electric guitar on top of that one. And then there's a couple, I think the one called Electricity, and the first one, Baba Drum, there's a couple, little bit of Rudy playing percussion with the drums and stuff. But I think the rest of it is pretty much just the actual sound of 3 of us in the room.
And so you basically would lay down a trio track and then add whatever seemed appropriate for the
Y-
tune.
Yeah, for those. But I mean, I didn't want to get. I mean, that would have been a whole nother record if we would have got into doing. I wanted it to represent what it is really when we play live, you know. So,
For someday when we do that again.
yeah, hopefully.
You've been recording at Floratone, Tucker Martine's studio, for a long
Oh,
time. And I was wondering, does recording in that familiar environment almost every time make the shifts in the music and the personnel easier to deal with?
that well, yeah. I mean, Tucker and there's actually he's moved when you. Wow, when I think about it,
Yeah, he moved the
let's see.
studio.
Yeah, and he starting in. I mean, it started years ago in Seattle in his basement. You know, his basement gradually got. I forget what it started out like, a 4-track or something, you know, and then just and then he moved to Portland and he got. Trying to remember how many different spaces he's had, but this might be the 4th one now, um, and I've been in all of them, you know, and it's so it's again it's not so much about the actual. I mean the physical space is awesome. He has some kind of like, how do you pronounce that, feng shui or whatever,
Oh,
like
yeah.
he has some sense of when you walk in there, it's everything's in the right place. Somehow you always feel comfortable. There's that, but so the vibe is always just the physical space is great, but the real what I'm trying to get at is it's Tucker himself. That's, you know, just the and usually it's with Tucker and Lee Townsend. I don't know how many things I've done with them together, and so it's just super feels like you're home, you know, when you're with those guys.
Yeah, and well, that's what I was trying to get at is not having to worry about that, like that being just a given and comfortable. Does that make
Yeah,
it easier? Like if you want to go in this time with, like 3 violins and a kazoo and, playing
yeah,
all my
totally.
music.
Yeah, and I don't have to think about. I don't have to be looking. I wonder what something's going to sound like or what might. You know, I don't. Not that I even know what that stuff is anyway, but I just trust those guys to find the right way to do it, and then they're both just super meticulous about. It just takes all that thought away. So all I have to do is think about just playing. I mean, Lee is always making sure that there's a lot of details that are being dealt with both of those guys that I don't have to think about.
Right. Now, you love country music and folk music, and you've played a lot of it, and a lot of that stuff is basically 3 chords. And I was curious, how do you add harmonic interest to those tunes to bring them
Yeah, well,
out of the
but I was,
cowboy chords?
I mean, something I was saying before, no matter how simple, it's like I don't even buy into the thing is, there's nothing, this music or that music isn't simpler or harder, or there's not one instrument that's harder than another instrument, or, it's just what you do with it. So, I mean, within those chords, like maybe the first chord you learn on a guitar, maybe it's a G chord, say. I don't know what the first chord you play. It was maybe you put your just one finger down but if you listen to that, just play that now, and it's like, again, like focus on that, and it's like you start hearing this whole rainbow kaleidoscope of other things within those three notes, those notes of that triad or whatever. I mean, every note there's a harmonic spectrum rainbow that's coming off of every note, and if you listen to it can bring you into all these other worlds, you know. And talking about space, I mean, if there's a G chord and then sometime it's gonna go to a C chord. Think about Monk again, or some, you know, there's a million ways that you could. There's G for this amount of space, and then it's heading toward this C. There's just a million ways that you could, if you land where you're supposed to land on the C chord, you know, there's like infinite ways you could wind your way from that G to the C, you know. So it's just, there's so many possibilities within what you could think of as simple harmony. I mean, it doesn't.
Right. Well, you do, but you have a unique way of doing it. Like, I mean, I worked out a version of Tennessee Waltz recently where, you know, for the end turnaround, I did kind of a classic descending 2/5, you know, like 6, what is it, 6/3 or 3/6 2/5 thing with, you know, but coming down harmonically. All, you know, it just sounds like a standard jazzy kind of turnaround. But you seem to work more like with either counterpoint or open voicings, or are you still using that kind of harmonic thought in terms of substitution, but just not using the standard
Yeah,
chords?
maybe, like I keep saying, like it's like, God, it's hard to. I, I'm not a teacher, you can tell, but
Yeah.
I mean, when you say counterpoint, sometimes that, like, just the melody itself, that gives you so much to hang on to. Like, if you have the melody, and then if you sit there long enough, it's almost like what it feels like is the melody is like if you think of that as there's a statement, or there's a few notes of the melody that it's like someone talking, and then I'll start thinking of answers to that, like Tennessee Waltz, da 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 da. So you think that, and then you could make sort of a counterpoint to that, like that's a question, and then you play an answer, and then you harmonize the answer, or you harmonize the question, and just sort of adding these. I don't know. It starts. It's like branches growing off of a tree or something, either with lines, or the harmony becomes some sort of color around it. It doesn't always have to be, like I said, if the chord's a G chord, it doesn't have to. If you're really hearing the melody note really strong, there's a million other chords that'll fit with that one melody note that you can, you know, and it's hard to describe what that. I mean, ideally, you're getting to this place where that stuff is just, you're not thinking so much about it. I guess there's always that process of, I guess practicing is like where you are thinking, and you're, oh wow, what would this possibility be, and that but the idea is to get to the point where that stuff gets so deep down inside of you that it's just coming instinctually. Or I mean, that the thing about thinking, Sonny Rollins always says that, the music's happening too fast to be, you can't be thinking about it because the music's happening too fast. So
Yeah, well, I know you don't think about it while you're doing it, but yeah, that's a good description of some of the stuff you do, and some of it is almost like you're playing the melody as a singer, and then you're accompanying the singer in the spaces
yeah,
as you would if you were accompanying a singer.
yeah, that's what I'm sort of imagining, like, or almost pretending that it's like an orchestra or a big band or something. You hear this thing and then but you can't do all of it either. So there's a lot of implying things, or I think, I still I don't have really much technique. I'm not fast or anything, but it's more, I'm just, what's in my imagination. I'm just trying to take little stabs at implying what I wish I could play or something.
Well, that's part of the brilliance, I think, of your playing is that you do that. You're great at implying that there's more happening than is actually happening. Then that there's more harmony. The harmony, you hear the harmony even though you're not playing the whole harmony. But you hear it. I hear it very distinctly when you're playing. It's not just, oh, it could be a lot of things. No, it's this. It's basically it's this, and I can hear it. Well, let's get to the fun stuff. I love the scene in the documentary about you where you show your guitar closet.
Oh God, that's it.
Well, it's we all relate. Anybody who actually plays guitar relates. Which of your many guitars and amps did you use on this record?
Just one. There's an acoustic guitar. There's one piece. What's the name? Where Do We Go? Or it's toward the end of the record. It's where I played acoustic guitar, and that was some friend of Tucker's just dropped this guitar off for him to borrow toward the end of the session, and it was this old Gibson LG2, this I think kind of early 50s LG2 that was like, man, it was so cool. So I ended up playing that on one song. But the rest of it, the whole record was just one JW Black, it's not, I can show it to you. It's right here.
Is it the black telly with the Bigsby?
Well, no,
this is a new one.
I was playing this. Can you see? Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
What
it
are those
has,
pickups?
so these are, this guy, Jeff Callahan,
Oh yeah.
not Callahan, but Callahan.
Okay.
There's another guy that makes bridges, Callahan.
Yeah, Callahan. I think you're right. Makes the bridges.
But these are, so he had these, they were sort of like P90s that were or they were actually kind of like Jazzmaster. But he made these, they're humbucking, but he tried to make them sound more like single coil. I don't know if you can see. So they look sort of like those gold foil
Yeah,
things.
they look a little like foil pickups.
But I really love these pickups, and then it's got that mastery bridge.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I never got to do this. This is cool.
And is that a Bigsby?
Yeah, and then a Bigsby, and then what else? I mean, so it's J Black so it's a telly shape,
Right.
and but that's what I played on the whole record.
You have a Bigsby on a couple of your guitars, but I'd be damned if I ever can actually hear
Yeah,
you use it. Do you ever use them?
a little bit, and I guess there was something about when I played a guitar that had it on there. It's something. I mean, I do every once probably not even anywhere on this record do I ever touch it, but it it seemed, and I don't know if it's just psychological or what, but it seemed that it changed the, well, no, it would. Like when you think about a normal Telecaster, the strings would be going down, right through the bottom.
Right.
It it changes the tension or there's something that I liked about the feel of the strings or something, the way it, um,
Also, Ry Cooder, I think, said the more metal you put on a guitar, the better it sounds.
oh,
I don't know if that's true, but I hear he said that. Um, and what amp were you using?
um, there's Tucker has an old, I have one too. It's a Gibson Explorer, I think but it's a small GA, is it GA 18 or something? It's a small tweed. I think it's like 1960 Gibson amp with one 10-inch speaker. It's sort of like a Gibson version of a Princeton almost. And I have one of those that I've had for a long time, and then Tucker got one. So I think I was using that, and then he also has a car Mercury that so I think it was those two. So I didn't have my own stuff in the studio, but Tucker has a lot of, he also has some of those, oh man, I can't remember I think they're a Portland company that makes these really nice amps. I can't remember if I used one of those on
It
something.
wasn't Benson, was it?
Yeah, he has one of those, or two, maybe even two of those. Um, but mainly it was that somehow between the Gibson and the car, I think, was what I was using mostly, I think.
Yeah. Gibsons have weird tubes in them. Do you ever have trouble getting tubes for it? I think they have
Uh,
octal tubes or just weird,
yeah,
you know,
this thing is
tubes.
sort of just the same stuff. It's sort of luckily lasted. I don't know.
So the other thing I thanks for sending me that code for the Vanguard show with Andrew
Oh,
Thrill. Have you've been done a couple of records with him and playing with him for a while? How'd you guys connect?
oh. Yeah, that's one of I can't even remember when we first met. It's like being in New York and you start running into people. It was quite a while before we actually played together, but I knew him, he was friends with Paul Motion for one thing, and a lot of mutual friends, and we would see each other maybe we'd be playing at the same concert or something, and we'd always talked about getting together to play. And then actually I think the first time we actually played was and I don't even know how many records I did with this guitar player, Jakob Bro.
Yeah, sure.
I played on like 3 or 4 records that we played together, and some were with Paul Motion, and then later there was one with Andrew. And I think that might have been the first time we played. And then I had a week at the Stone a few years ago in New York, doing different things every night, and I asked Andrew to play with me. We played duet there. I think we've done a few just duet concerts, and then he asked me to play on. So now we actually made a new album with that group that was at the band. So I guess I've played on 3 of his albums now.
Yeah, it's interesting you met through Paul Motion because he reminds me of Paul, and in that being more of coloristic rather than groove oriented.
Yeah, they're from that similar generation, and um, yeah, he's just, and the man, Andrew's sound, it's just to be right next to that. He just gets such beautiful tone, out of the drums. And but same thing, like when we're talking about, like Andrew, I don't even remember who all he played with. I mean, he's known for playing with Cecil Taylor, and but also he played with, I think he played with Coleman Hawkins. Like Paul Motion played with Coleman Hawkins too. That, or did he play with Mary Lou Williams? You know, I'm just saying the history goes. There's that bottom history stuff that's always, no matter how abstract he might get, there's like this whole line coming back from, some of the, the real stuff back there.
Well, that's. I mean, I've talked about this with a lot of people. There's a big difference between people who play avant-garde music who don't have a grounding in that and people who do. And that's not to say that some people who don't have the grounding don't make really interesting music, and can, find avenues that people who have the grounding maybe wouldn't. But there is a kind of depth that you get from the music, no matter how abstract it gets, from people who have that grounding, as opposed to the people I find who don't have that grounding.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that would always upset me when people, like with Paul, he would get sort of pigeonholed as, whatever you call it, free or abstract or this or that. But wait a minute, did you hear because he could play, his time thing was just unbelievable. The feel was, Paul played with Monk, and he played
Bill
with,
Evans.
and Sonny Rollins, and he played with Coltrane. He played with everybody, and
Well, that's something you feel though when you listen to him, because that going through that abstractitude, whatever it is that feel is there. I mean, that's why how you and Lovano, you all hang together. It makes it so much easier for you to all hang together because he's
yeah,
not just randomly playing stuff. There's a pulse going through his head. Even when he sounds like
yeah,
he's falling down a flight of stairs, there's
yeah.
there's that pulse. I mean, there's great drummers have that. Sean Pelton. Did you ever know Sean in New York?
No, no,
I mean, he can sound like he's playing like Keith Moon, but if you put him on a grid, it
yeah,
would be dead on.
yeah,
He just
yeah,
has that inside, which is great. I wanted to ask you about the Vanguard gig because what's it like playing with masks on? I mean,
yeah.
is that
Man, I'm not.
distracting?
And the mask thing is such a drag, but it was kind of, I mean, it's weird, there's no audience,
Yeah.
which, but still the Vanguard, it still has it felt so good to go down there, just walking down on the stairs. um it was like, I felt this sort of, it was a weird feeling, like a weight lift, like, wow, I felt like sort of a relief just to go down there. And then you're in there, and the the vibe in that room is still strong, even if there's no audience. So it really was nice.
Yeah, you're walking into
It,
history. I mean,
yeah, I
everybody
mean,
is.
I'm still I mean, and now I've gotten to play there quite a bit, but I'm still in awe every time I walk down there, and you just look out on the walls and all the pictures on the walls and think about who all has been in there, and it's like, wow, it's amazing to get to play
Did you
in
have to
there.
adjust to the sound to the fact that there's no bodies absorbing?
Not really. It's weird. It's kind of,
It's a pretty dead
that's,
room.
yeah, the room is just always, somehow there's some sort of magic in the room about you can play loud or soft, or I mean, I've played acoustic guitar in there on gigs sometimes with no mic, and you can hear it all the way, the very back wall by the bar. There's sort of I guess there's sort of a curve to the wall, and the whole room just is, there's not really a bad spot in the room anywhere.
Yeah, it is a magical place sonically as well as everything else. It's just one of those rooms like, the original Yoshi's. I was just talking to
Oh
Joel
yeah.
Harrison about that. At the original the first Yoshi's, I saw you there a couple times. Saw Jim Hall there a couple
Oh
of
yeah.
times,
Yeah.
and that room just sounded so good.
Yeah, I love that place too.
It was so you were reading on the Andrew gig. I mean, or you had charts there anyway. I was curious how
Oh,
you keep your reading up, between gigs.
wow. Yeah, that's what's, I mean, I can read okay. That's the other thing, getting older, my eyes, like I remember, I forget, it was a few years ago. Now I have like these progressive lens, and a lot of the gigs I'd been doing, I wasn't reading. I don't know, it seemed like there was a long period of time where I wasn't really having to read. And then I got some recording thing, and I'm in I have my music stand, and I got it wasn't even like it was hard music, but suddenly I was like, shit, trying to find moving my head. And then, your head goes up, and anyway, it's just by doing it, just.
But I mean, do you like spend a certain amount of time every day reading through stuff you don't know or ever?
Not, not really. Not like, it's more everything what you'd call practicing for me now. It's more what I was talking about writing. It's because I'll have my guitar, so I'm writing a lot. So I guess
Right.
that keeps it
Sure.
that, and it's, or a lot of times I'm writing down what I've just played on the guitar or something. So that it keeps that connection going.
Yeah.
But still, yeah, I know it's like if I seems like I'm really sensitive also to the way people write stuff out. Like, uh, I have to learn like a lot of people use computer now, and sometimes the way that stuff is, I always prefer handwritten stuff. Just somehow it always seems more accurate to what somebody had in mind for me. And sometimes, I don't know, and the way things are spaced, like I like to be sensitive. Like if I write one of my tunes, I'll try to have what's on the page reflect the actual phrase. Like I hate it when there's like if there's a 4-bar phrase and then somebody puts 3 bars and then 1 bar and
Oh
then,
yeah. Oh yeah.
you know, like it just, that kind of stuff. When I'm reading something for the first time, it helps me a lot if it's organized. Sometimes I'll copy stuff over that someone has done on a computer just so I can have it in my own. It helps me to, not that you have time to do that sometimes. But.
Well, notation. I mean, notation is fascinating to me. It's always been. I mean, on a number of levels. I mean, I'm a guitar player. I'm not a good reader by definition, but you know the joke. How do you make a guitar player turn down? Take the music. I mean, put music in front of him. But but I mean, one thing I love about it is that I can hear music for the first time ever when it's coming out of my hands. Which I think not enough people talk about as a joy of being able to read. It's like when
Oh yeah,
you can play
yeah,
something you've never heard and you hear this music coming out
yeah,
from that you've never heard before, which is great.
yeah.
But it's also tricky, and I don't know if you run into this when you do have to read. when I was at Guitar One, I used to have to come up with licks for the gear that I reviewed, play a lick and record it. And then their transcriber would transcribe it. And because I couldn't do it. I mean, I don't write like that. So he would write it out, and then he'd call me into the office and play it for me to make sure he got it right. And the notes would be right, but
Yeah.
it just didn't sound like music. It didn't sound
Yeah,
like,
I know. There's definitely a gap between that's what we were talking about that early, like when I write these, what's weird now is not being able to try the things I've written with other people, because that's where you really, or at least, or then, you can talk about it or something if you need to, but, or be surprised by the way someone else would. It goes the other way too. It could sound better than what you thought it was going to be too.
that's true.
But no, I know what you mean. There's like like if you tried to write down what Blind Willie Johnson played, write down the notes and then hand it to Segovia, it wouldn't sound like Blind Willie Johnson. I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of specifics involved. This kid Adam Neely has a YouTube channel. He's this bass whiz, brilliant bass player, and he has a YouTube channel that has this amazing following where he'll dive deep into subjects like this, and about how to write out a phrase, whether it should be a triplet or or 2/8 notes tied or whatever it should be. And they went into that on one of them, and it was just fascinating to watch. Because there's always going to be a gap. I mean, especially in jazz or anything involving swing or things like that. But I think interpreting stuff like that has a lot to do with musicianship. I think people who are good musicians hear the music in the notes. You play the notes and you kind of draw on you draw on the way you think about music to play it.
Yeah.
You can be wrong sometimes.
But that's the exciting thing, where it takes on if someone really puts their soul into it, then it, lifts off, and the notes become something else. That's what's so exciting. But if you just take it like some sort of mathematical thing, nothing's going to happen, I guess.
Yeah, but you have to be the kind of musician that hears that. This kid who was transcribing it, he was a brilliant transcriber, but I don't think he'd ever played a gig in his life. So it came out when he played it much more mathematical. He just wasn't the kind of guy who did that. It's interesting. Speaking of Yoshi's, I remember seeing Schofield there, where everybody was reading the music. It was all new music, and
oh wow,
that was fascinating to see. To see them kind of almost struggle through it when you're so used to seeing people on that level just burn through whatever they're playing.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I mean, that's why it's great to see. I mean, you with your bands, where even sometimes I notice you're reading stuff on stage. Whether
sometimes
it's a new tune or.
But yeah, with Andrew the other day at the Vanguard, that was amazing, because we recorded an album. I can't believe it's a year ago, but it was a year ago. We played at the Vanguard for a week, and then we did an album right after that with that group that you saw last week. And we had all that music. I just assumed we would play that music, but Andrew said, well, no, the record hasn't come out yet. I don't want to play that music in public yet, or play it have it. So we played all different music for what we did last week. So we were reading again.
Yeah, but I mean, it just brings another Yoshi's gig to mind, where I saw you with Paul Motion, where Paul called a tune, and you're there like going through your music, and desperately trying to find the music, and you couldn't find the music, and you said, okay, I haven't played this tune in 5 years, but let's just do it. And of course you nailed it, but it was just fascinating. On a kind of mundane level, how do you get, I know in New York, people take car services to gigs, or Uber, I guess now, and Lyft, and you're in Brooklyn. How do you get to Vanguard safely?
Well, that was, we were supposed to talk a couple of weeks ago at least, but
Right.
I ended up getting a car. That was one of the main reasons I wanted to live in New York, come back, is so I wouldn't have to have a car. And then for the past 6 months, I basically just been wherever I can walk in my neighborhood. So finally we said we got to get a car. So just as of about whatever it was, 10 days ago, we got a car. So
How did you get to the Vanguard gig?
that I got the car, I had a rental car, and then I got the car the second day of that gig. So I drove, because I still don't feel comfortable with the subway and stuff.
Yeah, understandable. Speaking of that Andrew record being recorded a year ago, you typically have a bunch of stuff in the can for a while. I don't know when you recorded Valentine, obviously before COVID. Do you have some other stuff in the can that will be coming out?
Yeah, right now I don't think there's really much. Yeah, a lot of times it seems like there's stuff where there's the Andrew one I think that's coming out early next year, I guess. But
Have you
other
heard
than
your
that,
stuff?
I'm not, no, because yeah, it's pretty, they got that out fast too. We recorded, actually I did the Andrew one last year, and then I went to Portland and did the trio that just came out. So I'm not sure what's going to come next now. So.
Okay. Well, before I let you go, I just realized guitar fans will hang me if I don't ask you what's on your pedal board these days and
Oh,
what you're using.
that's been kind of settled into I still use that line 6 delay pedal, the DL4. Is that what it
Yeah,
is?
the DL4.
The green one.
Sure.
That's always there. And then I have a Strymon Flint reverb and tremolo. I use that all the time. I love that thing. And Electro Harmonics freeze pedal. And right now I have these jam pedal. One is called a Tube Dreamer. That's sort of like a tube screamer. And then one is called a Rattler. That's like a rat, sort of. But on the record, I think I just used a tube screamer that I think mine might have broke or something. And Tucker had an old tube screamer. So I probably had the tube screamer, the freeze, and the
Flint.
line 6 and the reverb. I think that's all I used.
Um, have you met Giannis from Jam Pedals?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard his music? Some of his music?
Oh, actually, no.
Oh yeah,
I don't think.
he's great. He plays guitar and modular synths, and he's done stuff with Ivan Arset and
Oh man, I gotta check it
yeah.
out.
There's
Yeah,
some YouTube stuff on it. He's a really interesting musician, as well as that company has taken off. It's amazing.
yeah, really good people there. And I have a bunch of those pedals. There's also, I just got this. I haven't recorded with it. It's a Delay Llama
Oh
Extreme,
yeah, yeah.
something like that, and it's got this kind of. I'm just sort of getting it. It's got all these sort of. I don't know what it is, shooting things up octaves
It's
and
like
doing
it's
stuff.
sequencer. It's like a sequencer. He's got a sequencer built in. It's an analog pedal, analog delay. That's why it sounds gorgeous. But it's got a digital sequencer built in that changes the delay time in
Oh yeah.
automatically. You know,
Oh, okay.
in
Figure out what. Yeah, those there's those little buttons that, but it sounds real. It doesn't sound. Yeah, it's got real organic sounding. It's like real. It gets in with the natural sound real. You
yeah.
know.
Well, there's no digital sound. It's just digital control of the analog signal,
Oh
which is what makes it great. All right, I should let you go. It's great catching up.
yeah, you too. I hope we'll be together one of these days.
Yeah. Is everybody
Uh,
healthy?
yeah, so far we're been able to avoid all this. I haven't even gotten a cold or anything yet. So
Well, part of that, I guess, is we're all being so careful that the stuff that would normally give us a cold, we're not touching
yeah,
anything. We're wearing masks and
I mean everything's getting a little bit. It feels good that it's getting a little more relaxed, but then I get worried that people are getting careless too. So we'll see how. But man, I can't wait till we can. I just saw somewhere. I think I might have a gig in Nashville, but it's like hopefully by then it'll like in April or something like that. So,
we don't know.
I,
I certainly hope so. By then, I hope things shake themselves out somehow and work
yeah,
out. But until then, stay safe, stay careful.
yeah, you too.
All right, take care, Bill. Great to see you.
Yeah, really good talking. Take care. Bye.